Hello, Feuzion. My name is Alex Fuse, the host of Fusion News, and we have another great show for you right now. I'm on the phone with ESPN MLB reporter Tim Kurkijan. Tim, it was the first time the MLB played in London this past weekend. If you had a crystal ball in the near, future, do you feel like there could be a possible MLB team playing in London in the next 10 years?
I don't think permanently. I think we'll go back to London and play some more games. But I know baseball is trying to globalize the sport and become a little bit more international. But that's quite a trip to England. So I can't imagine a major league team, there that far away in the next 10 years.
There was 120,000 people in attendance between both of those two games. It was viewed by 176 countries worldwide, and it was the largest attended MLB crowd since September 29th in 2003. So do you feel like this was what baseball expected, or do you think this exceeded expectations this past weekend?
Well, I think it exceeded expectations. I'm not sure what Major League Baseball was hoping for, but 120,000 people really rings true. And even though the games were a little bit uneven and a little bit strange, and the ball was really flying, I think it was a great experiment. And I'm all for baseball globalizing and growing its sport. It's good for everyone. Let's, we'll learn from this, see if they can do it better the next time. But, to send the Yankees and the Red Sox like that's a pretty good draw in England.
And we have the All-Star game coming up in just a few days now, and this is another time where MLB can really strike to get back into mode to really get a hold of new baseball fans, and they've changed the rules for the Homerun Derby the past few seasons. So how crucial is a Homerun Derby to attract to new baseball fans this summer?
Well, I think it's great. I love the new rules of the Homerun Derby. When you're racing against the clock, I think that changes everything, which is kind of interesting. The beauty of baseball to me is it has the Homerun Derby because it adds another element to it. But more important than that, I think it's great that we have some new faces in the Homerun Derby. We have a young guy like Vlad Guerrero Jr., the youngest player ever to compete in this. And I think that's what keeps the Derby and the game fresh when we have first-timers. We're going to have, I think it's 31 first-time All-Stars, a bunch of first-timers in the Homerun Derby. I think that freshness really works in both of those events.
You just said it right there, and you said your favorite thing about the sport of baseball is that it has no clock, but we see a clock in the Homerun Derby. But that brings me into my next question for you, Tim. What is your favorite thing about this game of baseball?
Well, the best part about baseball is, for me at least, is the best player doesn't always win the game. I love basketball, and I grew up watching Larry Bird and Michael Jordan and all these guys always take the last shot. LeBron James is always the best player on the court. So now is Kevin Durant. But in baseball, the beauty of it is everyone has to bat, obviously, and what makes it so good is the 25th guy on the team might take the last shot. The 25th guy on the team might be the hero of the game, and it simply doesn't happen that way in the other sports, and that's what I think makes it so unpredictable, and we love the unpredictable nature of it.
We'll switch gears now quickly and go back into your career, but I just have to ask this one thing for you. It came out yesterday that the owner of the Boston Red Sox, the GM, Dombrowski, said once Eovaldi comes back, he's going to be the closer for the Boston Red Sox. Do you think this is desperation mode or urgency mode coming from Dombrowski now?
Well, I think it's urgency. It's not desperation. There is a playoff. There are a couple of playoff spots still open. The Red Sox are not going to win that division, but there is a spot open, and if Eovaldi as the closer can help them, I think it's worth a try. He's done this before. He's got a remarkable arm, and even though he's been hurt a couple times, he's proven in the regular season and in the postseason what he can do as a reliever, and he's a remarkable pitcher with great stuff. And assuming he's healthy when he comes back, and that'll be a big if, I think this is worth trying, because I just don't think they're going to have those closers available through trade unless they really go overpay to get Will Smith from the Giants. But I don't think Brad Hand or Sean Doolittle are going to be available. And the bottom line is, if the Red Sox are going to make the playoffs, they're going to have to really improve the back end of that bullpen, and maybe Evaldi is the answer.
Before you started with ESPN, Tim, we'll go back into your career. You were on the beat for the Texas Rangers and the Baltimore Orioles. Do you miss the everyday aspect of covering just one MLB team, or do you like working, kind of covering every MLB team?
Well, I love them both, obviously, but my favorite job I've ever had was being the beat guy for a newspaper. It was going to the ballpark every day. Every game was just another chapter of a book that was written for that season. I really enjoyed being a part of something that you could start on the first day of spring training and take till the end of, September or October, depending how far your team went. I'm an old newspaper guy at heart. I will always be a writer first, and I will always be a beat writer first. So as much as I love what I do now, my favorite job I've ever had was being a beat guy.
And that kind of, rings true to myself as well. I'm play-by-play broadcasting for a New England College League baseball team this summer. And before any road trip or any home game, I stop at the local gas station and pick up a newspaper. I think that so many people in this young generation, don't realize how great the newspaper is. You get all the box scores and everything. So do you miss the everyday aspect of picking up a newspaper and reading the box scores every day?
Yeah, of course. I still read the Washington Post where I live every day, but I cut out the box score of every game for 20 years and tape them in notebooks as an adult. Nobody would ever think about doing that. And the only problem is with our newspaper business, not nearly as robust as it used to be. I couldn't get all the box scores anymore, but there is still nothing better for me than sitting down, reading the newspaper in the morning. It will always be one of my favorite things to do, and I've said it many times. Newspapers, at least when I was growing up, was the greatest value in America. All that information for usually just a quarter a day. That's just amazing to me.
All right, Tim, this is my favorite segment on the show. It's called the Fast Five Quick Question Round. I'll ask 5 quick questions, and you can have however long of time you have or you want to answer. So the first question is going to be favorite MLB stadium.
Well, I'm a traditionalist. I'm 62 years old, so I'm going to go with the oldest stadium, and that's Fenway Park. And no matter how corny this sounds, every time I go in there, I think Ted Williams played left field right there, and Babe Ruth pitched on that mound right there, and that still matters to me.
If you could spend an entire lunch with someone in the sports world, and it could be off the record, who would it be?
Well, is he alive or dead?
You alive and or dead.
All right.
It's up to you.
All right, Babe Ruth comes back to life. I would like to have lunch with him. I would like to know what the game was like when he played. I would like to know how, at a time when everyone was so much smaller than him, that he had such incredible strength and such athleticism. I think he, after Jackie Robinson, is the most important player in Major League history and probably the most fascinating. So count me in for lunch with Babe Ruth.
If Babe Ruth asked you what was the game of baseball like today, what would you tell him?
I would tell him players are bigger, stronger, faster than ever. Guys throw at an incomprehensible rate of speed. Guys hit the ball at distances that I don't think even Babe Ruth could have imagined back in the 20s. And I just think he would really appreciate understanding just how big, strong, and athletic our players are today.
If a college president called you up right now and asked you to teach one college class and they gave you the option that you got to choose what class you taught, what class would you teach?
Well, I would teach journalism because I still like to think of myself as a journalist at heart, and I'm a little bit worried, if I may, that we've lost some of our journalism in today's media I think Twitter has not helped things. I don't think the internet has helped things. And I think that's where we are. I think I would like to try to get our young people back to understanding what real journalism is about, what a breaking story is really about, how you handle sources on and off the record. I think that would be the class I would teach, because that's the way it was taught to me 45 years ago.
There's been so many MLB players that have done their own Tim Kurkjian impression. Who do you think has done the best?
Well, they've all been terrible, because if I really sound like that, then I need to go get another job or certainly another voice. However, JP Arenstevia was the best because he was the first one to do it. He was hilarious. Everyone seemed to enjoy it. It took me a little while to come around that this is a good thing. But since he was the best, the first one, I'll give him credit for being the best one. I did ask him after he was done. I said, JP, tell me that you could do a bunch of other guys. You do a bunch of impressions. You can do Jack Nicholson and people like that. And he goes, no, I can only do one guy, you. So I found that to be amusing. So I'll go with Arenstevia. But I must say, my dear friend Aaron Boone, who I worked with for 7 years, he's got my mannerisms and the inflection in my voice down probably better than anyone, and I'm not real proud of that.
Tim, this is the last question in the interview, and this is one I love to ask a baseball player, a reporter, a person that loves the game of baseball. If a 16-year-old kid came up to you and told you that they don't understand baseball and it's boring and they're never going to watch, what would you say to them?
I would say you need to get as close to the action as you possibly can, a seat as close to the action as you can to appreciate the speed of the ball. Once you have an understanding how hard that pitcher is throwing, once you have an understanding of how quickly the ball leaves the bat, once you have an understanding how terrifying it is to stand at home plate or even at third base when a ball comes whistling past your ear, then you will have a better and more important understanding of the speed of the game and the degree of difficulty of the game. Because the one thing that I knew when I was 7, and I know again, and better than ever now that I'm 62, is this is the hardest game in the world to play. And the only way to understand that is to get as close to the action as you can, understand the speed, understand how dangerous that game is, and those who play it really well deserve our utmost respect.
Well, Mr. Kurkjian, I always appreciate you taking the time to come on my show today, and thanks again for coming on today.
My pleasure, Alex. Thank you.
Have a great rest of your night.
Okay, you too.
All right, Fuse Nation, just heard it from the one and only Tim Kurkjian. It's always great talking with him and catching up with him. A great friend of the show. And so thanks again for listening to this Fusion News podcast with Tim Kurkjian. Once again, I'm Alex Fuse. Follow me on Twitter, @AlexFuse, and I'll be seeing you very soon. Thanks for watching.